The morning of June 18th, 1992, began like any other in Amarillo, Texas. Dry wind, heat rising from the cracked asphalt, and the distant hum of freight trains cutting through the industrial edge of town. By 10:14 a.m., that routine silence shattered when two masked men walked into Golden Mesa Jewelers on 8th Street and turned an ordinary weekday into a day the city would never forget. The cameras inside the store, grainy and washed in yellow from the Texas sun, captured 37 seconds of chaos. A clerk screaming, a display case shattering. The taller robber, a man in his early 30s, lean, with a slight limp, pointed a .38 revolver toward the counter. The second, younger, moved fast, filling a duffel bag with watches, necklaces, and gold coins. They spoke little, only short, controlled commands. Move. Down. Now. When it was over, they fled in a pale blue Chevy Caprice, leaving behind a clerk in shock and a single dropped gold chain that would later become a clue nobody recognized at the time. The store's owner, Henry Vasquez, was not there that morning. But when police contacted him, his face went white. "That wasn't mine," he said, staring at the empty glass cases. "That gold wasn't mine." Within 24 hours, Amarillo police launched what would become one of the longest-running and most confusing cases in the city's criminal archives. The heist had all the markings of a professional job, but the robbers' getaway looked sloppy. Witnesses gave conflicting accounts. Some said the men were calm. Others said they seemed desperate. One swore she saw a third man waiting in another car by the alley, smoking a cigarette. No one saw his face. The stolen inventory was estimated at nearly $1.8 million, though most of it was never officially cataloged. Golden Mesa had been struggling for years. So how did it suddenly have that much gold? Detective Raymond Holt, 52, veteran of 2 decades in the department, was assigned lead investigator. His partner, Detective Lisa Monroe, 27, fresh from the academy, was eager, methodical, and obsessed with detail. Together, they started tracing the money, the cars, and the men who might have wanted to take such a risk. Within the first week, they hit a wall. The Caprice used in the robbery was found burned 2 counties away. Stripped of plates, it's been filed off with acid. The clerk could only describe the robber's eyes, cold and gray, like someone who'd already made peace with what they were doing. Local newspapers ran the story for a week and then dropped it. Another small-town robbery, another unsolved case. But behind the scenes, the FBI's regional office quietly opened a file. The gold that had disappeared was rumored to belong to a cartel intermediary, Diego L. Leon Martinez, who had been laundering drug money through legitimate jewelry imports across the southern border. That link was never made public, and inside police records, the case was marked simply as robbery, high value, no leads. Holt didn't buy the silence. He knew the tone in Vasquez's voice. That first day wasn't fear, it was guilt. Something else was going on. In a taped interview on July 1st, 1992, Vasquez said, "I was holding it for a client just a few days, that's all. I didn't ask questions." That tape would later vanish from the archive, leaving only a brief transcript note. Audio unavailable, tape damage. Monroe, meanwhile, kept searching financial ledgers. She noticed something odd. Vasquez's insurance claim was filed 36 minutes after the robbery, before police had even finished the scene report. Someone had warned him. But who? By August, both robbers had disappeared. No arrests, no sightings. The FBI quietly retracted its involvement, citing insufficient federal nexus. The trail froze in the desert heat. Holt transferred to another division in '94. Monroe stayed, working cold cases. The heist became urban folklore, whispered in bars, retold in half-truths. Some said the robbers fled to Mexico. Others claimed they'd been silenced by the same men whose gold they stole. And for 5 long years, there was nothing. No trace. No bodies. No gold. Until spring 1997. April 12, 1997. A rancher outside Clovis, New Mexico, reported finding an abandoned trailer deep in his property. Inside were rusted tools, old furniture, and hidden behind a false wall, 2 sealed metal boxes. Inside those boxes were stacks of receipts from Golden Mesa Jewelers and a small velvet pouch containing a gold chain, identical to the one found at the robbery scene 5 years earlier. The serial number on the pouch matched the store's pre-robbery inventory log. And there was more, a wallet, weathered but intact, containing a driver's license for one Michael Landon, age 33, Amarillo, Texas. When Monroe received the call, she drove 3 hours straight to Clovis. The photos she took that day would later form the core of the reopened case file. The Amarillo heist, unresolved. The trailer smelled of dust, oil, and something faintly metallic. On a table, she found a notebook with smeared ink dated March 1993. Most of it was illegible, but one line stood out. He said the gold wasn't his. He said it belonged to the Lion. Back in Amarillo, Holt, now retired, got a call from Monroe. She wanted him back unofficially. They found something, she told him. You need to see it. He hesitated. 5 years is a long time, Lisa. Not for the dead, she replied. Over the next week, the two started revisiting old witnesses. The clerk, now living in Dallas, told them she'd received anonymous letters over the years, each containing a small amount of cash and a single line written on line paper, "Sorry for that day." Handwriting experts later confirmed the notes matched one of the robbery suspect's early police reports from another state, Michael Landon himself. That changed everything. If Landon had sent those notes, he was alive, and he was sorry. But for what? Just the robbery or something worse? On June 7th, 1997, police tracked a vehicle registered to Landon's brother to a small mechanic shop on the edge of Lubbock. When they arrived, they found a burned-out sedan behind the building and a buried tin box near the fence line. Inside, fragments of gold, melted into rough lumps, and a strip of film. The negative showed two men standing beside a car, trunk filled with jewelry boxes, the same duffel bag seen in the 1992 security footage. But in the corner of one frame stood a third man, half hidden by shadow. Monroe enlarged the image. The man's watch glinted in the light. It was the same brand worn by Henry Vasquez, the store owner. When confronted, Vasquez denied everything. "I didn't even know those guys," he told reporters outside the courthouse. But his voice trembled. The official files show he refused to take a polygraph and fled town 2 weeks later. His body was found 3 months after that, floating in a canal near the border. No signs of struggle. No witnesses. Only a note in his car's glove box, written in shaky handwriting. It wasn't supposed to go that far. The case files would later reveal that Holt had quietly reopened the investigation under a false classification. He suspected that Vasquez and Landon had struck a deal to rob the store themselves, cutting out their supposed partners, the cartel's couriers. The third man in the photograph was believed to be Carlos Vega, a known enforcer for Martinez's network. Vega vanished in July 1992, days after the robbery. His name never appeared again in U.S. records. By fall of 1997, the puzzle looked complete, but one piece still didn't fit. The gold was gone. Every ounce of it. When the boxes from Clovis were analyzed, they found traces of sea salt and tar, indicating the gold had been melted and possibly shipped overseas. The question wasn't who took it anymore. It was who let it disappear. Late one night, Monroe played the old 1992 footage again, frame by frame. And she noticed something she'd missed before. A reflection, barely visible, in the glass case at the moment the robbers turned to leave. A figure standing outside the store window, holding a camera. Someone had been there, watching. And when she pulled the timestamp from the footage, her blood ran cold. It was recorded 8 minutes before the robbery officially began. Someone had known it was coming. Archival note, police transcript, July 1997. Detective Monroe, did you find out who the photographer was? Not yet, but he wasn't a bystander. He was waiting. For what? For proof. That line would echo through the Amarillo police archives for years. Proof of what? And for whom? Remained unclear. But the reappearance of those photos shifted the narrative. The robbery wasn't just a theft. It was an extraction, a message between criminal factions that went wrong. Holt's handwritten memo, filed in October 1997, summarized it best. This wasn't a robbery for gold. It was a robbery for leverage. And then, as quickly as it had resurfaced, the case vanished again. Monroe was reassigned. The trailer in Clovis was demolished. The photos disappeared into evidence storage. But in 2002, a journalist digging through declassified police records found one last item attached to the Amarillo file, a short recording labeled Tape 12B. On it, a man's voice, gravelly cautious, said only this: "Tell them I never meant for anyone to die. But once you take the lion's gold, you never stop running." The voice was later identified as Michael Landon. He was never found. When the Amarillo police reopened the file in 2002, few believed it would lead anywhere. Cases like that, lost gold, vanished suspects, burned cars, were the kind that haunted evidence rooms for decades. But Detective Lisa Monroe hadn't stopped. Even after being transferred to the cold case unit, she kept a copy of the case folder in her drawer under a stack of faded manila files. She would open it late at night, the smell of old paper and dust mixing with the hum of fluorescent lights, and stare at the same two faces, Michael Landon and Thomas Reed. The second robber, the one they never even identified until years later. It began with a postcard. In March 2002, an envelope with no return address arrived at the Amarillo Police Department. Inside was a photograph, printed on glossy paper, showing a beach, palm trees, turquoise water, and a man sitting at a cafe table wearing sunglasses. On the back, in shaky handwriting, "He's still alive." A faint fingerprint on the edge matched Lisa's old suspect file, Thomas Reed. The photo had been printed on film paper produced in Panama, 1998. Monroe knew instantly what it meant. One of them had escaped. But how? The investigation reignited. Monroe pulled every customs record, travel log, and wire transfer linked to the suspects. What she found was a trail, small but deliberate. Between 1994 and 1999, several transfers totaling around $350,000 had been made from a Panamanian shell company called Sol del Norte trading to small accounts in Texas, Louisiana, and Arizona. One of those accounts belonged to a woman named Martha Langley, Michael Landon's former girlfriend. When police approached her, she denied knowing anything, but Monroe noticed her hands tremble when asked about Panama. "He called once," she finally said. "Told me not to look for him. Said he'd made a mistake, and it wasn't just about the gold." She paused, then added quietly, "He said they took someone. That changed everything." There had been no mention of a kidnapping in the original file. But when Monroe dug deeper, she found that on the day of the robbery, a local delivery driver named Eddie Nolan went missing while delivering a package to Golden Mesa Jewelers. His van was found 2 blocks away, engine still running, door open. He'd been written off as an unrelated disappearance, until now. Monroe pulled his file. Same date, same street, same hour. What if he had seen something? Or someone had used him as leverage? Holt, now long retired and living in New Mexico, got another call from her. He was slower now, more careful with his words, but his instincts were still sharp. "If Landon's alive, he's scared," Holt said. "And scared men talk, eventually. The trick is knowing to whom." Together, they reached out to Interpol through a contact Monroe had from a joint narcotics task force. Within weeks, they got confirmation. A man using the alias Robert Kane had been arrested in Panama City in 1999 for a bar fight, paid a fine, and disappeared after release. The mugshot matched Thomas Reed, older, thinner but alive. The case went global. Archive note, FBI memo, June 2002. Subject Reed believed to be operating under alias Kane. Possible connection to gold smuggling network, moving through Port of Cologne. Potential witness to cartel-linked financial laundering. Monroe flew to Panama that July. The humidity wrapped around her like a blanket. She met with a local investigator who handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph, dated 2001, showing a small boat docked near Bocas del Toro. A man, wearing a faded baseball cap, looked directly at the camera. Even through the grain, Monroe recognized him. Michael Landon. She tracked the boat's registration. It was leased under the name Henry Castillo, paid in cash. Locals remembered him as quiet, polite, always paid on time. But one bartender, after a few drinks, told her something chilling. He used to sit there, staring at the sea, saying he hears footsteps in the waves. Said the lion was still watching. That night, Monroe played the 1992 audio tape again, the one with Landon's voice. The line echoed through the hotel room. Once you take the lion's gold, you never stop running. The implication was clear. The gold had belonged to the cartel's leader, Diego Martinez, known as El Leon, and they hadn't forgotten. Back in Texas, Holt started connecting dots. A man named Samuel Ortega, one of Martinez's former accountants, had recently entered witness protection after testifying in a money laundering trial. Holt arranged an interview through the U.S. Marshals. Ortega refused at first, but eventually agreed to speak off record. That gold, he said, voice trembling, wasn't just money. It was insurance. Martinez hid names in it, engraved numbers, serials of accounts. Whoever stole, it didn't just take his wealth. They took his secrets. If that was true, the robbery wasn't random at all. It was a hit orchestrated to recover or expose those secrets. Maybe Vasquez, the jeweler, had been pressured into holding the gold as a front. Maybe Landon and Reed were pawns. But someone higher had planned it. In October 2002, Monroe returned to the States. She requested permission to exhume the remains of Vasquez, whose death had been ruled accidental drowning. The coroner's report from 1997 was incomplete, missing toxicology results. When re-examined, traces of chloroform were found in the tissue samples. Vasquez hadn't drowned. He'd been drugged. The case became a storm. Local news resurrected the old headlines. The Amarillo Heist. New clues emerge. Monroe faced pressure from every side, some wanting the case closed, others wanting it buried. Then, one night, an envelope appeared under her apartment door. Inside, a cassette tape labeled for Monroe. Transcript, cassette tape, undated. Male voice. If you're hearing this, I'm already gone. I didn't kill anyone, but I couldn't stop it. Rewind it out. They found us. He's dead. I buried him near the border, where the soil smells like rust. I kept one piece, the chain with the lion's head. I thought it might keep them away. It didn't. Tell them I'm sorry. The voice was Michael Landon. The tape crackled with scene noise in the background. Monroe played it again and again, trying to hear beyond the words. The mention of rust triggered something. There had been an abandoned rail yard near Brownsville, Texas, where old freight containers sat untouched for years. She drove there herself, accompanied by 2 agents. Under a rusted boxcar, half buried in sand and scrub, they found a shallow grave. Inside were skeletal remains, a wallet, and a small gold chain shaped like a lion's head. Dental records confirmed it. Thomas Reed. With that, the last missing piece of the original heist surfaced. But one question still remained. Where was Landon? Weeks later, in December 2002, Interpol intercepted a coded message sent through a secure email network used by former cartel operatives. It read, "Lion's debt settled. The ghost sleeps." The message originated from Belize City. Monroe flew there within 48 hours. At a rundown guest house near the harbor, she found a man registered as David Lane. He matched Landon's age and build. But when she entered the room, the smell of disinfectant and mold hit her. He was already gone. On the bed lay an envelope, addressed simply, Detective Monroe. Inside was a faded Polaroid, the same beach photo from 2002, but with a new line written in pen. You found the gold, but not the truth. Beneath the photo was a small key tag with the number 12B, the same code from the police tape recovered years earlier. She realized what it meant. The gold wasn't just melted down, it was stored, somewhere close enough to reach, but far enough to be forgotten. She traced the key's origin to a safety deposit box in Houston under an alias connected to one of Vasquez's shell companies. When they opened it, the room fell silent. Inside was a single gold bar, engraved with a lion's head emblem, and a microfilm embedded in the base. When examined under light, it revealed encrypted banking data, offshore accounts linked to Martinez's cartel, political donors, and several unnamed officials across 3 countries. The real secret of the Amarillo heist wasn't greed, it was exposure. Someone had wanted to destroy the cartel's leverage by stealing its gold-coated accounts. Landon and Reed were scapegoats. Vasquez was the front. The true mastermind remained in the shadows. The revelation shook both law enforcement and organized crime circles. Within months, several officials resigned quietly. A senator faced indictment. The FBI reclassified parts of the Amarillo file under national security interest. Monroe received an anonymous message in her inbox. The lion never forgets. For weeks, she lived with the feeling of being watched. Unmarked cars near her home. A shadow under the streetlight that wasn't there before. Holt warned her to step back. Some truths, he said, aren't meant to be solved, only survived. But she couldn't stop. She needed closure. In April 2003, she returned to the Clovis trailer site, the place where the first clue had been found. The land was barren now, but in the dirt, she found something half-buried, a rusted toolbox. Inside were old photos, letters, and a worn-out tape recorder. She pressed play. Transcript, Clay Road recording. Landon, they told me take it. Said it was just money. But it wasn't. When Reed found out what was inside and wanted to turn it in, that's when they came for him. If you find this, tell Lisa, I never stopped running, but I never stopped looking for forgiveness either. The gold was never cursed. We were. The tape clicked off. Monroe sat there for a long time, the desert wind howling through the empty field. Somewhere in that silence, the story of two desperate men, a corrupt jeweler, and a lion-hearted empire finally found its peace. The gold was gone. The truth, half buried, half whispered, remained. In 2005, the Amarillo heist file was officially closed. Cause of crime: organized theft and criminal conspiracy. Primary suspects: deceased. Remaining evidence: destroyed. But Monroe knew better. Sometimes justice wasn't about convictions. It was about remembrance. A year later, she visited Holt in New Mexico. They sat on his porch, watching the sun sink behind the desert hills. Do you think he found peace? She asked. Holt exhaled slowly. Maybe, he said. Or maybe he just ran far enough to forget why he started. She nodded, staring at the fading light. Funny thing, she said softly. Gold doesn't shine much in the dark. The last note in the official record, written by Monroe herself, reads, Case closed by file, not by heart. Truth remains uncertain. No one ever recovered the remaining gold. The lion's head insignia was never traced to a specific origin. But whispers of new bars appearing on the black market in 2006 reignited speculation that at least part of the treasure resurfaced, somewhere far from Amarillo. And on a quiet evening in 2007, an anonymous donation of $50,000 was made to the family of Eddie Nolan, the delivery driver who vanished the day of the robbery. Attached was a note, and signed, for the one who saw too much. Maybe Landon had kept one promise after all.